Hi, thank you so much for joining me. We are on Yerushalmi Berachos, Daf Hey in the Oz v'Hadar print. And we're going to talk about Ayales HaShachar and the redemption and a few other things. We're going to go through a very famous word, Dilma, that comes up throughout the Yerushalmi, and we'll discuss that. Let me first start off with one quick thought. There's just so much to say today, and I really want to keep it short. So there's a famous Gemara in the Bavli, which does not follow what the Yerushalmi says here, and it's Machlokas, how do you stand when you daven Shemona Esrei? Trei Amorai, Rev Levi and Rev Simon. One of them says, Kimalachim, you stand like angels, and the other one says you stand for like Kohanim. Some of the Mefarshim explain that what does it mean when you daven Shemona Esrei? We know we put our feet together. Don't be confused by the fact that some people stand with their feet separate as well. That's based on the Tosis and based on other opinions in the Gemara and Berachos, not being discussed here seemingly. What's being discussed here is, do you stand like angels or do you stand like Kohanim? And the Gemara explains, the one that says like Kohanim, lo sala b'malos al mizbechi, that they would walk eke b'tzad godel, which seems to be saying that you would have to stand with your front toe and the back touching the back of your heel, which is a very interesting way. That's how the Kohanim would walk up the ramp, and that would be one opinion, which is difficult. I guess if we poskin like that, that would be difficult. I've never seen anybody standing in Shemona Esrei like that, but that's one opinion. And the other one is what we're more accustomed to, which is like the Malachim, that they don't have a separation in their feet. And this, if you want, you could take a look in Orach Chaim. The Torah brings down both opinions in Siman Sadi Beis. And take a look over there at the Beis Yosef and the Taz. You'll get a lot of interesting things. The question is, what's this comparison that when we daven, are we like angels or are we like Kohanim? So I want to say something very, very brief. And that is like this, that when we daven, we know that our job is that we're supposed to throw off our physicality and become more spiritual. But at the same time, we're also human beings who are Yolid Isha, like the Gemara in Bavli and Berachos. Daf Peiches says that Hashem gave us the Torah specifically because it's meant to perfect us. So there's an element of physicality that's there, but of course when we daven, we're supposed to strip that off. So the opinion that Paskins, which is how we follow, that because the Bavli only brings down that opinion, that we are like angels, we put our feet together, that opinion is really teaching us a very important lesson, that when we're serving Hashem, we are being very, very holy, and we want to try to emulate the angels for a moment when we're davening. But the opinion that says that we're like Kohanim is also something to keep in mind, that when we're Kohanim, what we're doing is we're doing the Avodah, we're standing in front of Hashem, it's Avodah Shebalev, and we are serving Hashem, and that's an amazing part of davening as well. The Rashba in Agados says similar idea. If you take a look, you'll see the Rashba, the Spiritual Agados. So that's one element. What I want to say is that there's a lot more to say about that, but we'll just cap it at that. The Rabbeinu Bachya brings down a very fascinating thing, and he says that in his time, and this is something that was true then, he says when Jewish people daven, they put their feet together. He said when the other Umas HaOlam, the Christians daven, they put their hands together. Think about what he's referring to, and you'll understand that that's a sense of prayer. And he says something very fascinating. He says, you know why? He says because when they stand in front of their God, whether it's Avodah Zarah or not, we're not going to go into that. What they're saying is, God, my feet are up to me. I could walk and do whatever I want in life, but I am willing to subjugate myself to you a little bit, and that's what the hands represent, that I could subjugate something. But when we Jews stand in front of Hashem, we put our feet together. We say, Hashem, I do not move without you. You are the only movement that I have in my life. Okay, let's skip a little further, and I want to read the story, but the story has the word before it that says Dulma, or Dilma, however you read it. Normally the word Dilma that we're familiar with means perhaps, but that's not at all what it means in Yerushalmi. It always means a story. Why does it mean story? So you have different opinions. Let's just go with the simple pshatim. The Charedim says that Dalma, and he has a little bit of a discussion, is da lama doma. What is this compared to? Which is basically an introduction for a story. The Rosh Rilio, in his introduction to Zram, says da lema. This is fit to be said. Da lema. It's fit to be said, meaning there's an important lesson to be learned from this story. But either way, when you see the word dulma, it's always introducing an interesting story that happened. And according the simple understanding is da lema. What is this? What is this comparable? So what's the story? Rav Chia Rabbah and Rav Shimon Bar Chalafta were taking a walk, and they were walking in the plains of Arbel in the darkness before the morning. What happens? Ro Ayales HaShachar, which is what the entire Gemara is about, Ayales HaShachar, which I'll tell you 2 ha'aras on that, hopefully. They saw the light of the Ayales HaShachar breaking out, and Rav Chia Rabbah said to Rav Shimon ben Chalafta a beautiful statement. He said, Berebi, great one, Kachi Gulasim Shal Yisrael. This is exactly how the redemption of the Jews is. B'tchila kima kima. First, it starts to come up in small measure. Kol mashi holachas hi rab v'olachas. Then it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And he quotes a pasuk, Ki eshe b'choshech Hashem orli. That's what it is. So I want to say 2 important lessons about Purim, but also one about life itself. Okay, so what is that? So what you see from Chazal is such a beautiful thing, and this Yerushalmi has really deeply impacted me. I've always been moved by it, because here they are walking, and you would think, okay, they're talking and learning, etc. He's looking at the world around him, and he's noticing. You see what's happening now. You see how this sun is slowly rising. That's how the Jewish people are redeemed as well, and that's how our probably personal redemptions take place. There's a small break, and then everything comes through, and you see Hashem. And that's how our life is supposed to be lived. That when we see the natural world around us, that we should recognize that it's coming from Hashem, and that's mibsari echsa lo, that we see Hashem from what happens around us. And the physical world, you find in Chazal that they're always looking at the world around us and learning a lesson. For example, the Gemara says in Eruvin that if the Torah would have been given, then we would have learned the mitzvahs from different animals, because nature teaches us this. Gemara in Sanhedrin says, how do we know tchias hamesim min haTorah? It's a kal v'chomer from chita, that it rots in the ground and then it comes out alive. So Chazal taught us this important thing. Look at the world around you. This Ayales HaShachar, instead of just saying, wow, that's a beautiful sunrise, he took it as a lesson of, look, that's how Hashem redeems us. Now, this Ayales HaShachar is mirames to Esther in many ways. Esther is called Ayales HaShachar in the Gemara Megillah, but if you take a look, just think about it, it's a lesson that's very relevant. Kapitel Chaf Beis in Tehillim is called Ayales HaShachar, and the Kav HaYashar brings down that there's a minhag to say that kapitel on Purim, and then to spill out your heart and be mavakish anything from Hashem. It has beautiful words, Keli Lamazaftani, which Esther said, and she is called Ayales HaShachar again because she was a light that carried out throughout Klal Yisrael. But what happens? It starts off slow, and then all of a sudden the redemption is there. And that's an important lesson in life, that sometimes it seems like it's not happening, which is the whole story of the Megillah, but then all of a sudden at the end, all the pieces come together, and the salvation was there, and all the things that seemed like they were the worst, Esther being taken by HaShachar, really was part of the salvation. There's one more thing that's brought down in this farm, a very fascinating thing, that Mordechai had two names, Psachia and Mordechai. If you go through the gematria of each, there's something very fascinating that happens, and that is that the word Psachia versus Mordechai, they both have the same exact letters. Write it down on the paper, by the way, you'll see. They each have 5 letters in their name. I don't know if you can see my paper over here, if you're here with me. Okay? Sorry, that's my notes for today. So, Psachia and Mordechai, the mem of Mordechai is 40, and the pei of Psachia is 80, so it's double. Then the resh of Mordechai is 200, and the tuf of Psachia is 400. Again, it's double. Okay? Then what happens? What happens is, then you have the dalet of Mordechai, which is 4, and the ches of Psachia, which is 8, so it's double. But then all of a sudden it reverses at the end. And that is that all of a sudden Psachia, which was the one that was double, all of a sudden, which was his original name, he was Yored Migdula, so he lost his greatness. And then he has a Yud and a Hey, which is 10 and 5. 10 times 2 is 20. And 5 times 2 is 10. Mordechai, the Chaf Yud, comes back to life. And so too in life, that there's a Mordechai where it seems like you're going to be crouched, and it seems like everything's going down. He was Yored Migdulaso, and it seems like the Jews are going to be lost. And what happened to the Psachia, the greatness that I had in the past, but before these times of troubles, before the Gullus, then all of a sudden, Mordechai, the Chaf Yud, comes through, and it pierces through, and Hashem saves us. And that's the salvation that the Jewish people have, that it comes through, and Hashem always delivers. So we should be zocheh to, number one, to remember that greatness, that everything that happens in life is a lesson from Hashem, and number 2, to recognize that Hashem is always bringing the Geula slowly, like the Ayales HaShachar of Esther and Mordechai, and everything in life, and we'll see the Geula Shlema from here b'yameinu.